7-month-old Emmanuel Haro is still missing out of California. His mom claims that he was abducted and she was attacked in a parking lot. Law enforcement say her story doesn't add up, and when she was pressed about that, she stopped cooperating.
I laid him down and so I could get his diapers ready, and somebody said, "Hola," and that's all I remember.
His parents made an emotional plea on television.
Whoever took our son, please give him back.
That video is per KABC. It was before detectives say the family stopped cooperating with them. The dad you just saw, staring straight into the camera, pleading for his son's return, has now hired a lawyer who is pushing back. And we're also learning more about Emmanuel Haro's dad's background, and we have the details of a shocking case of child abuse from his past. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Emmanuel Haro's dad, Jake, has hired an attorney who says he is not representing Emmanuel Haro's mom, Rebecca. But that attorney is pushing back on the notion that Jake Haro is not cooperating with the investigation. I'll get to what that attorney said in just a moment, but here are some of the latest updates we have from law enforcement out of San Bernardino County. We know that deputies have now seized a family vehicle from the house of Emmanuel Haro. A 2-year-old has also been removed from the home. This is video shot by missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher, who's been on the ground in San Bernardino County this week. This is the Haro's house from above. Steve's going to join me in just a moment to talk about what he saw. Overnight, an online blogger who goes by Abby Blabby spoke to News Nation, and she talked about a conversation she said she had with the adoptive mom of Emmanuel's now 7-year-old half-sister. Again, this was in an interview on News Nation. That blogger talking about the young girl who is now named Promise, a girl who is now blind, who cannot talk or speak, she says. The adoptive mom of that girl is the cousin of Jake Haro's ex-wife. In 2023, Haro was convicted of willful child cruelty. That is according to online court records that we have. The Daily Breeze has an affidavit that says that the infant was admitted to the hospital with fractured ribs. This incident happened in 2018, and Haro is currently on probation related to it. That girl, again named Promise, is now 7 years old. This case is not connected to the search for young Emmanuel, but it is details related to Emmanuel's dad and his criminal history. It's unclear what happened to Emmanuel Haro. All we have from law enforcement is that they're still searching for him, and his parents have made those pleas on television in hopes of finding their son. All of this started in this parking lot last week on Thursday night when Rebecca Haro said she was attacked in Yucaipa, California, which is east of Los Angeles. Rebecca said that she took Emmanuel with her and she was going into a sporting goods store after being at a football game for one of her other children. They needed a mouth guard or something like that to bring back to the football game. Emmanuel, though, needed a diaper change. So Rebecca says before they were going to go into the store, she had Emmanuel in the car and she was going to change him. She says she then heard someone say, "Hola," and that is all she remembered. She says she blacked out. She woke up, she had a black eye, and Emmanuel was gone. She ran into the store for help, but no one had seen the boy. She called police, and then she went on the news with this story.
I got him out of the car seat, and I laid him down and so I could get his diapers ready, and somebody said, "Hola," and that's all I remember. She
told that to KABC TV, and then she went to another TV station, KTLA, and spoke to them saying the same story.
I was gonna get the diaper and somebody said, "Hola," and I didn't see nothing since. I woke up right here on the floor, and I didn't see Emmanuel.
The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office said they found inconsistencies in Rebecca's story, and when they pressed her, she stopped cooperating. Deputies then said they could not rule out foul play in the disappearance of Emmanuel Haro. Right now, we know that deputies have searched the Haro's house. They say they have surveillance videos from the area of where this incident allegedly happened, but they don't have the exact location of where Rebecca says she was attacked. Jake Haro has hired an attorney. His name is Vincent Hughes. He is defending his client, and he says his client is cooperating with the investigation and willing to give an interview. Here is what he said on Banfield last night on News Nation.
Why have Rebecca and Jake stopped cooperating with the police if they're desperate to find the baby and the police are looking for the baby?
I don't know where the statement that they stopped cooperating came from, Ashley. I spoke to the detectives yesterday, offered for Jake to continue to speak with them, have not been made aware of any requests today to speak with Jake. I don't represent Rebecca. That needs to be very clear, but I have not been asked to produce Jake. I offered to produce Jake. They voluntarily turned over all of their electronic devices, including the passwords. I think that's something that's huge that nobody has been made aware of.
Hughes says this couple is begging for the public to help find their son. He also says, because their car has been seized and they've handed over their phones and passwords and they live in such a remote area, that they can't really do much to help in the search. That attorney was very clear in the interview. He is only representing Jake Haro and not representing Rebecca. There is another suspicious piece of information that's come to light about Rebecca, and it's from a report by KTLA. It's reporting that Rebecca may have been seen with that black eye as early as August 3rd. The Uvalde Foundation for Kids, which is a national nonprofit that advocates for children, was helping with the search in the beginning. But then, once it came to light about inconsistencies in the story that Rebecca was telling, they say they pulled back reward money and resources from that search. Law&Crime.com reached out to the nonprofit, and this is what they told us. We're receiving information that Emmanuel was not even reported to have been seen at the football game the mother alleged they were all at. As an eyewitness report that the mother's apparent bruise acquired during the attack at the Big Five was in fact acquired previous to the incident. We're awaiting further confirmation from law enforcement. All of these, coupled with our previous notes, have led to our decision. The most recent update from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office shows they seem to be maintaining that the Haros are not cooperating. It says, while Emmanuel's father has retained an attorney, if the parents choose to work with detectives, we welcome their cooperation as we continue efforts to locate Emmanuel. Joining us now is missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher. Thank you, Steve, for being with us. I know you were out in the area where this, according to the mom, this abduction took place, but also you saw their house. We can only see from the outside what all of this looks like. What stood out to you, having talked about the story and then seeing it there on the ground?
Well, it's it's a property that has like 3 buildings on it. It appears like, Cabazon itself is a kind of remote town. It's right along the 10. It's if you're traveling from Los Angeles to Palm Springs, you would go through it. There's a casino there. It's really the only thing out there. Problem is, it's just vast land as far as you can see, and not knowing, nobody seems to be able to know when the last time they saw this child was. So we don't know when this event, if an event occurred, when it occurred, if this isn't the kidnapping that she claims it is. How much of a head start could have there been? It's gonna be a tough one. We need one of them to crack.
Well, and so Jake Haro has an attorney. It's a criminal defense attorney that was involved in his case stemming from the incident in 2018. So he already had a relationship with a criminal defense attorney.
Right.
Just in your experience, is it odd that that attorney is speaking for him, representing him, but then when it comes to questions about his wife, who they were both, the day that this happened, they're sitting next to each other. What does that say about, in terms of questioning and how this goes, that one just does not appear to have a defense attorney and the other does?
Yeah, so I think, it has to be that way because they'll lose privilege if he's representing both of them, so it gets really complicated because anything technically by law to keep the privilege, Jake and his wife can't be discussing this case anymore because anything he tells her is no longer privileged. So, and whether that happens or not, who knows? However, it is interesting that she still doesn't appear to have counsel. And that's an interesting dynamic. I don't know if it's absolutely true, but I believe I read somewhere that the attorney volunteered that he was doing this pro bono because he's represented Jake before. So maybe it wasn't, maybe it was a case of Jake accepting that help and not so much shelling out money because he felt he needed it. However, it is an interesting, dynamic. And last time when I was on a couple of days ago, I talked about, I felt that they would start turning on each other, they cannibalize each other, and that might lead to some answers. And I have a feeling that could be beginning to happen, or this could set that stage, because Jake's attorney certainly is telling him, listen, if it's on her, you gotta, you gotta cooperate and save yourself. And then vice versa. I mean, I'm sure she's, if it was at his hands, let's say, and this is all speculation, there's no proof of that, but she's going to have to say, or at some point she's going to say, listen, I got to save myself, and even if he is a very violent person and she's scared of him, at some point she's got to cooperate with the authorities. And I guarantee, the detectives are leveraging that. They're not able probably to talk to him as freely as his attorney may make it sound like he's making him available. But if she, even if she's shut down, they can still, through the press and through the public, apply some leverage to try and get her to come, forward, and one of them, try and save themselves and then get the story.
Yeah, because the other part that's been pointed out by people who have been covering this case is it was initially reported that, and I think it was the grandmother who had initially said the reason they stopped communicating with police was, they wanted to do a lie detector test on Rebecca, and then Jake says, no, we should do it. We need to get an attorney. And then here's the attorney, but he says, I'm representing Jake Haro. I'm not representing Rebecca Haro. So that's just, who knows what's to make of it. At this point, there's just a lot of speculation because the story, bluntly, it's a little sketchy.
Why hasn't, has he taken a lie detector? He's represented now that he said that was the barrier for him to take the polygraph. So he's got an attorney. So has he taken one? Why not? If not, why did he go back on his word?
We know that from law enforcement because even though they've kept a lot close to the vest, as they do, but I think when they said we haven't ruled out foul play, that was a massive moment in this story where everything changed. We know that they have surveillance video. It doesn't appear that they have it of the moment that Rebecca says everything happened, but they do in the area where she says she traveled from and where, somewhat of the parking lot, I'm sure. I saw, kind of followed the path of where she went. What stood out to you about what you saw compared to what she's saying?
So I believe that she said it took her like 40 minutes to get there. I don't know how that happens. I think it took me 4 minutes, and that was with stopping at traffic lights and whatnot. But on that Yucaipa Boulevard, there's tons of cameras. There's a police station on one side of the road that is lined with cameras. There's an heavy equipment rental place along the way. Those have tons of surveillance cameras because thieves go in there and steal the machinery and whatnot. They will be able to track them. Now, whether they'd be able to see in the vehicle to see if there's a baby seat or not, maybe not. But I will say, from being at the Big Five, there's a jewelry store that adjoins that parking lot, and it does have this shrubbery or trees, whatever you want to call it, that are along the wall. But there is happens to be a big hole in the trees and there's 2 cameras hanging from one corner that are pointing at that parking lot, and they're there to, for in case anybody comes over the wall. I think that captured at least a good portion of what may have gone on. Maybe not the entire car. I know from across the street, the person said that his cameras just aren't pointed at the parking lot. They would see anybody coming in and out of the parking lot, but not the actual event. But the jewelry owner is not saying exactly what's on the camera, but they're alluding to there's significant, information on there. So I think there's enough there. And, listen, I bet you they've shown her a portion of that by now and said, we know your story is, false. And I talked to the Big Five employees. They said that, it's just, they actually laughed at what she was saying about this kidnapping and all this going down outside.
When you go in, because I mean, this is as notable as probably a Big Five sporting goods store has been ever. Everybody, no disrespect to Big Five, but just saying, everybody is talking about this story. What is it like when you approach some of the employees that were possibly there that day when she comes up or is telling this story to law enforcement?
Yeah. So I mean, they want to remain anonymous, obviously, for their jobs, but there is like a memorial set up outside now for him, and they actually have a security guard station there, and those employees are coming and going, and people are there. It's kind of a gathering spot for people, locals, where they're talking about this, and a lot of people, work there or work in that complex, and they're just saying that, it she's straight up lying, and they also confirmed to me, I didn't see proof of it, but they confirmed to me that they did come in. What was said to me was earlier in the month. I didn't give me an exact date. uh, Asking if there was surveillance cameras because their car had been tampered with or broken into or something, and they wanted to see if they could find out who the person was, and so it seems like they had scouted it out before.
So that was confirmed because I know that that was kind of like no, somewhat of a rumor that they had been to that parking lot before, but people have said that they saw them there and it might have been in their opinion about a car break-in, but they were asking about surveillance cameras.
Yeah, and I didn't have a lot of time with this person because there was other customers, but they said so I don't know if it was, I took that as maybe both of them, and they just said it was earlier in the month because I know there had been some reports that maybe it was like 2 days before, but they just said earlier in the month.
Okay. Yeah, and another thing earlier in the month, this was from KTLA that I saw that, this black eye that has become the center of a lot of questions. I know we were talking about it last time that there was a report that she was seen with that black eye as early as August 3rd, which also adds, because I know last time we were talking about, doesn't seem that she has other injuries if she had fallen on the ground because she was hit. There's also something
Yeah.
to be said if you're changing your baby, it's a shiner kind of right here if someone was to hit you straight on, and then to
Hmm.
I don't know if it would be like a hook or and look, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, and if she's telling the
Right.
truth, it is what it is. But um, based on what you know, and I know you're an EMT as well, like what does that black eye tell you?
So that black eye was in a healing phase. The swelling had already subsided. That those blood vessels, that's breaking up, back absorbing back into the skin. It's turning that kind of yellowish pale color. That's the healing. That's 10 days plus. And like I said, so now video surfaced of her at his brother's funeral. I believe he died July 24th, and the service was August 5th, if I remember correct, or within a day or two of that. And the, beyond the black eye, there, she's said that the reason that this child hasn't been seen really is because the child's not vaccinated, and so she's not taking public. Well, she is at that service without the child. So who was taking care of the child that day? Because that babysitter, whoever it was with, could be the last person that could say, yes, I saw Emmanuel. He was alive on this day. We need a date of when Emmanuel was last seen alive. That besides what the parents say, independently corroborated. So if it wasn't Jake watching the kid, or Emmanuel, I should say, then who was it? Because that person needs to be talked to because she's clearly on video at that service and the baby is not with her. So whoever was watching the baby needs to be talked to because we need a date of to go from when this could have happened, you know.
Well, and Jake's attorney in that News Nation interview was saying, why isn't law enforcement right now searching for, they're the ones who are criticizing my client, saying that they're not
Mhm.
going to be involved in the search, and he disputes that. And he says, why isn't law enforcement out looking for this child. And, to an extent, I mean, it seems like they're following leads and they search the house and probably isn't searching in places that the attorney, would like maybe. But I guess what would this look like if law enforcement believed even a little bit that this was actually a missing persons case and not what appears to be a criminal investigation? I guess how do they vary? Because on one hand, they are looking for Emmanuel, but on the other hand, it is not the type of search where you see people going through the woods, boots on the ground, and all of that.
Yeah, so it is a criminal investigation and not a traditional missing persons case because a 7-month-old can't just walk off into the desert or into the woods and get themselves lost. 7 months old, right? So somebody took this child somewhere. And, now listen, I am going out there again tomorrow and I am going to just spot check, places of interest. But I think the police need to narrow down. They're like, who had this child last? When was that? And then they can go back and get warrants for that time frame on certain people's cell phones, and I would include the grandma, everybody in their orbit, and find out if any of these phones went to strange locations out in the desert or wherever. I mean, their house is literally surrounded by open desert and Indian reservation, and so it's difficult. That you got to have something to go off of. In a missing person case, where somebody, say it's autism or Alzheimer's or even a distraught person or a missing hiker or whatever, they're under their own power. A 7-month-old is not walking out into the desert, so they're not going to send search parties there. They got to have an area of interest. And I am a little surprised that they don't have that yet. Now, there could be searches going on that we don't know about, but these are not going to be with search and rescue teams per se. These are going to be with detectives going and checking, possible burial locations or in water, things like that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to hear just based off of what the attorney's saying and how available he says Jake Haro is, whether we hear that he comes in for another interview and what the communication is going to be. We'll keep a close eye on it. And I know you are as well. Steve Fisher, missing persons private investigator. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.